Hi everybody, we're in the Master Puppeteer, Chapter 6. Okada finished the new play just before New Year's. Yoshida provided a copy to each of the 5 chief operators, himself included, 3 to Mochida for the 6 left-handed operators to share, and 2 to Kawada for the 8-foot operators. The boys, as usual, were given nothing, although their names were already on the notice board for curtain pulling and handling the one-man puppets, which Okada had generously sprinkled throughout his play. TG was terrified. If I make a mistake, Yoshido'll kill me, and he's got me up for one-man puppets in 3 different scenes. Kinji slurped in the last of his breakfast soup. Don't worry, Chi-Chi, I'll get us a text. Haven't I always? As he said it, he gave Jiro a look that dared him to contradict. It's not the same with the new play, Ueda argued gloomily. Yoshida doesn't have texts lying around the house. Jiro turned to the senior boy. What did you do the last time Okada wrote a play? Kinji grinned. I stole Yoshida's personal copy. Minoru slapped his plump thigh. You're a devil, a real devil. Isn't he a devil? Oh no, said Kinji, not really. I gave him a chance to memorize it first. And he never suspected? Jiro asked skeptically. If he did, he never mentioned it. Well, you're not going to try that trick again, Jiro said. The other boys turned to Jiro, shocked by his assertion, but interested. Are you challenging the authority of the senior boy? Ueda asked. Kinji, too, seemed waiting for an answer. Jiro put down his empty bowl and placed his chopsticks across it. They had no proper chopstick stands at the Hanaza. At least not for the boys. I'm not trying to challenge your authority, Kinji, he said. I just think as the newest boy and the one with the least to lose, it would be better for me to take the risk. I mean, Yoshida can hardly demote me now, can he? Suppose he beats you, asked Minoru. Well, I hope I could take it like a man. We've all had a good example of how that should be done. He looked straight at Kinji, who met his gaze and then looked away. Suppose, Kinji said softly, still looking not at Jiro but toward the sliding doors, he should turn you out. Jiro swallowed. Then I should be out. But I don't think he would. He's more likely to give me a second chance than one of you. All of you have been here more than a year. You should know better. But me, maybe he'll figure you made me do it. You're one brave fellow, Jiro, TG said, not without admiration. It makes sense, Ueda said. Jiro knew Ueda would be much happier to see him beaten than Kinji. Minoru? Jiro asked. Sure, said Minoru. It's your skin. If you're eager to risk it, who are we to say you can't? And Kinji? Jiro turned to his friend, whose gaze was now directed toward the floor matting. He was tugging at a bit of loose straw. Will you give me permission to get the text this time? Jiro asked him. The senior boy shrugged, a gesture which Jiro read to mean that permission had been granted. That same day, Jiro sought out a slight boy named Tozo, who was an apprentice samisen player. Remember we looked at the instrument, the samisen? And lived on the other side of the theater. Tozo had a lovely, almost feminine face, and was said to be one of the most promising of the apprentice musicians. But somehow, despite his talent and handsomeness, he had so far escaped arrogance, and unlike most of the youths on the east side of the building, was always courteous to the puppet apprentices on the west side. I wonder if you could arrange for me to see Okada. He was kind enough to help me enter the theater, and I've never thanked him properly. He's been very busy with the new play lately, Tozo replied, but I think things are quieter now. At least I can ask for you. Wait here. In a few minutes, Tozo was back with the news that Okada would see him at once. Jiro would have preferred a little more time. He'd hoped to figure out some kind of present to take to the chief reciter, but since fate decreed otherwise, he straightened his shoulders and marched behind his escort. Okada knelt beside his charcoal hibachi. That night, the night shutters had not yet been opened, so the room was dark and felt damp. Excuse me. Okada turned to face the sound of Tozo's voice. It is Hanji's son, Jiro. Jiro knelt and bowed his head to the mat. I'm afraid I'm interrupting you at a very busy time, he murmured. Young Jiro, is it? Come in. He motioned the boy toward the hibachi. It's warmer over here. Shall I open your shutters? Tozo asked. Oh, the night shutters. Yes, do. It will be gloomy for you sitting here in the dark, won't it, Jiro? No, it doesn't matter. Because remember, he's blind, right? You must forgive me. Light and dark are the same to me, you know. Do open them, Tozo. Maybe the light will dry up some of this cursed dampness. He shook his head. My bones are getting old, you know. They do feel the damp. Tozo shoved the shutters open, letting in the pale winter sunshine. It was not strong enough to rout much of the damp, but somehow it made Jiro feel better than sitting in the dark. The sightless eyes stared ahead under their drooping lids, but the mouth was smiling and mobile. Thank you, Tozo, and do you think you could find us a pot of tea and a bean cake? Please don't bother, Jiro said. It's a good excuse. They don't like sending in sweets to an old man like me. I have to think up a lot of excuses. He poked at the charcoal with a pair of metal chopsticks. Well, how are things going for you over on the west side? Very well, thanks to you, sir. Please forgive me for not coming sooner to thank you formally, but I had hoped my father might be able to send a small gift. The old man put up a hand. What would I do with a gift? It would just burden me on my journey to paradise. But I'm sure he wanted to thank you for your kindness to me. Unfortunately, yes, he's been very ill. Actually, he left Osaka and has gone to be with relatives in the country. I'm sorry to hear that. Okeda stirred the fire and added more charcoal in a neat little mound. There is too much sickness and suffering these days, isn't there? Yes, sir. Just bring it in, Tozo, Jiro started. He hadn't heard the other boy at the door. Oh, so the blind guy says, just bring it in, Tozo. And Jiro was like, what? He hadn't heard the other boy at the door, but Osaka was able to tell that he was there. Tozo came in with a tray, which he put down on the matting. He took, Okeda, not Osaka. He took Okeda's right hand and placed it gently on the teapot, then on each of the 2 teacups, and then on the tiny plate with the 3 bean cakes on it. He gave Jiro a nod and excused himself. Okeda poured the tea without bending over the pot, his eyes staring straight ahead. He lifted one of the cups and handed it to Jiro and then pointed at the bean cakes. Jiro was careful to refuse 3 times, but Okeda persisted, so he helped himself. Tell me, Okeda said, how is young Kinji doing these days? Oh, very well, very well. Jiro's mouth was full of bean cake. Yoshida's as severe with him as ever, I notice. Oh, that. I suppose if I had a son, I would do the same. Hard for the boy to understand, though. Understand what, sir? See, you don't even understand. How could Kinji? He sipped his tea noisily, as old men do. I'm quite fond of that boy. Yes, sir, so am I. He's been very kind to me. Although he's the senior boy, he helps all of us. Okeda smiled. It's hard for someone like you from the outside to understand our way of doing things in the theater, isn't it? Sometimes, sir. Who, by the way, is Kinji stealing the new script from? Sir? You need to pretend ignorance. He always steals one. What? How? The reciter lowered his voice to a comic whisper. I won't tell anyone. Jiro put down his tea. His hand was shaking so much the tea was swishing madly about the cup. As a matter of fact, sir, one of the reasons I came today was about the script. Oh? I was afraid if Kinji stole it and got caught. You see, lately his father's been quite strict with him. Well, if we got a script that way, we could all do a better job. Kinji's supposed to handle several of the one-man puppets, and all of us have responsibilities. So you thought you'd come right to me and ask for a text, since no one on the other side is going to give you one voluntarily. Is that right? Yes, sir. I guess so. Okeda laughed, the wrinkles deepening in his face. Then he leaned forward and whispered as before. There's an extra one on that stack of things behind you, he said. But if anyone asks, be sure to say you stole it. Otherwise you'll get me in trouble with Yoshida. And we can't have that, can we? No, sir, I guess not. Jiro could not tell if the old man was teasing him. You guess not, huh? Okeda laughed again. Well, since you're getting the extra script, I think I'll take the extra bean cake. All right? Oh, yes, sir, thank you. Jiro turned to the stack of scripts. Brushstroked on the cover page was the title, The Thief of the Tokaido. He picked it up. You're very kind, sir. Kind? I didn't know you took it, remember? He chuckled as though he had made a joke. Yes, sir. Jiro rolled up the precious text and stuck it into the flap of his tunic. Thank you. Tell Kinji to come and see me. He used to run in here often when he was a little boy, but since he's been over on the west side, he never comes. I'll tell him. Jiro bowed his way out of Okeda's dressing room and danced down the hall into the courtyard. He had the text. Their troubles were over, at least for now. The boys were awakened earlier than ever these days, but they were not complaining because the extra hours were being spent getting ready for the New Year's. There was a lot of necessary scrubbing and polishing, which the boys did without particular enthusiasm. But in addition, there was the food preparation, which enabled them to get in a lot of pinching and dipping before Mrs. Yoshida caught on. They would steal little bits of food. We're lucky, said TG when he and Jiro were working together, making rolls of cucumber and vinegared rice in a seaweed wrapping. There are many starving in the city of this New Year's. Why do we always have food? I say we're lucky. But Kinji said there are bodies in the streets of people who have starved without anyone to bury them. Jiro slashed the knife through the roll and arranged the rice circles in the red lacquered New Year's box. As long as we have good audiences, I suppose so. Still, Jiro's voice trailed off. Mrs. Yoshida was coming over. She didn't like them to chatter when they were supposed to be working. Jiro, she said, there's someone to see you out front. He says it's about your parents. Jiro ran across the courtyard and through the theater. Taro had come as he promised. Jiro's heartbeat quickened, and as he crawled through the entranceway, his body seemed heavy with dread. My father, he asked at once without even a nod of greeting. Taro bobbed his head. About the same, it says. Your mother came back alone. Did she ask you to fetch me? Taro hung his head. I told her you wanted to hear, but she said never mind, not to bother you. He looked into Jiro's eyes. I came anyway. I thought you... Oh, yes, you did right. I asked you to let me know. Well, how is she? Not too good. We're all pretty hungry, you know. I guess it's the same everywhere. Yes, I suppose so. Jiro breathed in deeply through his nose. Fortunately, there was no tantalizing smell of cooking escaping from the theater. Well, he said, thank you for coming. Yes, the other boy nodded. I'll come to see my mother as soon as I can, but you don't need to say anything to her, all right? All right. What Jiro wanted to do was go back to the kitchen and get something for Taro to eat, but he stifled the impulse. If the people on the outside knew there was food in the hanaza, it might be dangerous. He nodded, thanked the boy again, and watched him leave. They would have some time off at New Year's. He would go to see his mother then. The final day of the old year was spent in an orgy of cleaning and preparation. The boys beat the glutinous rice, and glutinous means like glue, like gooey rice, until Mrs. Yoshida pronounced it ready to make into dumplings for the New Year's soup, and little cakes which could be toasted over the charcoal. They were to have 3 full days of holiday with lots to eat and no real responsibilities beyond the building of fires and the sweeping out of rooms. And Yoshida is sick, Kinji announced with a grin. He won't be able to join our festivities. Minoru lay back upon the floor mat. Then I can eat and drink all I want, he said happily. The thought of a 3-day holiday without the eagle eyes and sharp tongue of the master cheered them all, though they left it to the simple Minoru to express their thoughts in words. For Jiro, it meant no troublesome explanations. He knew Mochida would let him leave. He could spend the whole time with his mother if she would have him. Mochida gave him permission to go as soon as he liked the next morning. But wouldn't you rather wait, he asked, at least until the first soup of the year is drunk? Jiro thanked him for his kindness, but somehow the thought of his mother hungry and alone took away his appetite for the feasting at the hanaza. When Mochida came to wake them and send 2 of the boys out for New Year's water from the well on the shrine grounds nearby, Jiro was already dressed and folding up his bedquilts. Tiji, Minoru, Mochida barked. A new year has dawned. Please get the lucky water before it ends. The boys groaned and turned over. Jiro gave them a friendly jab with his toes. Be kind to me again this year, friends, he said. Wait for me at the side door, Kinji whispered. I'll let you out and bolt it behind you. Jiro waited at the door. He blew on his hands and stamped his feet. It was a bitter morning. What was Kinji up to keep him waiting in the cold? Kinji appeared from the direction of the kitchen. Here, he said, put these under your tunic. He handed Jiro a square kerchief wrapped bundle and a jug. It's soup, he said of the jug. Just heat it up. The rice dumplings are with the other stuff. Kinji, why do you keep on stealing from me? Because, Kinji's face wore an air of mock anguish, instead of brains, I was provided with goose feathers. He patted his head and sighed. Now, he said, changing tone, get going and hurry back. We can't have you missing all the fun. He gave Jiro a slap on the rear. Kinji's jug was leaking, and by the time Jiro reached his parents' house, his tunic would be soaked. He felt frozen from the cold. He might have taken the cursed jug out and carried it in his hand, except for the people he passed, huddled in the shelter of gateways or in the alleys. It was too dark to see their eyes, but he could feel the stares as he went by. He slowed his walk and tried to act as he thought someone hungry might. It was a long time since he'd really been hungry. He bent over a little and put his hand on his stomach. At least he was still scrawny. He prayed that the smell of the spilled soup would not travel from his body. The neighborhood was dark and quiet, the house still shuttered. He went over to the side gate and to the back. Mother, he called as loudly as he dared, and he didn't want to rouse the neighborhood. Mother! There was no answer. He tried the back door. It was unlatched, so he pushed it aside and stepped into the kitchen. Mother! He slipped off his own sandals and put on the kitchen clogs. There was no quilts down in the adjoining mat room where his parents usually slept. Jiro took the jug and kerchief from his tunic and put them on the kitchen table. He climbed up barefoot from the stone floor to the mat level, poked his head through the half curtain and peered into the shop. There was no sign of her. Where could she have gone at this time of morning? It wasn't dawn yet and wouldn't be for a couple of hours. Here he is with his food, heading on out to see his mother. With a mixed feeling of anxiety, could something have happened to her, and relief, he didn't have to face her quite yet, Jiro lit a lamp and rummaged about in the small bureau until he found an old tunic of his father's. He changed his shirt. There was water in the barrel. Jiro dipped out a little and rinsed the soup from his own shirt. If he put it outside, it would freeze, he decided, so he wrung it out as dry as he could and hung it in the kitchen. Now for charcoal. There was a little. Jiro carried the cooking brazier, and a cooking brazier is a pan for holding burning charcoals, into the backyard and made a fire, and when the noxious fumes burned off, he carried it back inside and put a kettle of water on. Then he opened Kinji's kerchief. Into a wooden box, Kinji had crammed something of all the good things Mrs. Yoshida and the boys had prepared the week before, with tea and rice dumplings and some sweets and delicacies he had never seen before. In one corner was a bit of folded cloth. Jiro undid it to find 3 tiny silver coins. That rascal, that fool, that thief! He would get them both into trouble with this kind of mischief. He'd have to return the money. Who are you? Jiro turned at the sound of his mother's voice, and just in time to dodge a stick of wood that she brought down heavily where his head had just been. Mother, it's me! He hardly recognized her. Her eyes were wild, her hair disheveled, her kimono nearly torn off at the shoulder. She dropped the wood and stared at him, then swayed, her eyes drooping. Jiro caught her before she hit the stones of the kitchen floor. He dragged her across the kitchen to the edge of the matting, laid the upper part of her body on the matting, and then lifted her legs up. She looked like a paper person, but she was heavy and awkward to handle. He climbed up into the room and got a cushion to put under her head and then a quilt to cover her. Her eyes began to flutter. She shook her head and shoulders and painfully raised herself on her elbow. Jiro knelt beside her. A new year has dawned. This new year, I again ask for your kindness. New year, she echoed dully and lay back. Jiro stepped down into the kitchen. The water was ready, so he made a pot of tea and put the soup on to heat. He tried to smile up at Asako as he worked. I brought a little feast with me, he said, wanting to sound more cheerful than he felt. Food? Where did you get food? Yoshida sent it. He did not specify which Yoshida. That outcast bum. He will be lucky to be reincarnated as a cockroach. And some people believe in reincarnation, right? Which is that you come back to life as a different animal, according to how you lived your previous life. Yes, Jiro agreed happily. His mother was back to her normal self, but it doesn't hurt the taste of his food. I'm going to change my kimono. Jiro nodded and turned his back to give her privacy. Mine got torn. I noticed it was a little torn. A little torn? Those beasts would have torn my arm off. Jiro stirred the soup. Should he ask her what happened? Would it make her angry if he seemed to pry? I see you don't care what happened. Yes, I do, he said. I was trying, her voice was tight, to get a little food. Oh, he replied stupidly. There was a rumor that food was to be given out at the Busu shrine. Sano told me. The priests were distributing a gift from Saburo, so they said. Saburo? Oh, you know Sano. He always has a tale. There was a big party the night before last for the richest merchants at the house of Kawagachi. While the city starves, those bloodsuckers gather to dance upon our bones. Well, this time they drank too much. No. Or perhaps, as Sano says, the wine was drugged. At any rate, they woke up to find the entertainers all gone, along with the food, their purses, and all their clothing beyond their loincloths. And this was what the priests of Abusu Shrine were distributing? Who knows? At any rate, it was useless, dangerous to go. I received a small packet of food, as did Sano and Taro, but as we left the shrine, there was a mob waiting, those who came too late for the distribution. Did they attack you? No. They kissed our sandals and prayed for our continued health in the new year, she concluded bitterly. Jiro turned. I'm sorry they hurt you, he said. She was being joking when she said that, because they did attack her. Sano's son was there to help him. Yes. Jiro kept his head down as he poured the soup. Without any further words, what could he say that would not bring her anger down upon him? Jiro climbed up and pulled the low table into the center of the room. He folded up the quilt and then, putting cushions on either side of the table, served the food. He could not bear to watch her eat. Asako looked like a mountain monkey on Mount High, grabbing at the trash left behind by pilgrims. He bowed his head and drank his own soup very slowly. We must not eat it all now, Asako said abruptly. She began in a housewifey fashion to tidy up the box. What's this? Jiro's skin prickled on his scalp. He'd forgotten about the money. Is there something there? It was too late to get it back. Money, she said. Where did you get it? I guess Yoshida put it in. Maybe it's a New Year's bonus. Humph. She turned the coins over in her palm. Jiro waited for her to say more, but she didn't say anything. How is my father? He finally asked. Oh, she said, giving him a bitter look. How should I know? He needs proper food. There's none to be had, even in the country these days, except, she looked at the food box, except it would be seen in the bosom of the rice merchants and money lenders of Osaka. The rest of the day, as he swept the matting and scrubbed the stone floor of the kitchen and courtyard, he made up things to say to her in his head. If, somehow, he could think of the right words, perhaps she would understand why he had gone to the Hanaza and hate him a little less. But the words always shriveled before they could make their way through his dry throat to his lips. He wished that she could know that at the Hanaza he was fairly well thought of, obviously more clever than Minoru, and probably the equal of the boys, with the exception of Kinji. And Kinji. Even Ueda recognized that Kinji had made Jiro his special friend. He wanted to tell her about himself, and that somehow he was going to help her and his father. He wasn't sure how. He knew that he would get no wages until he was promoted to foot operator, but he would find a way to. He had to. Sano says the daimyo has raised the price on Saburo's head. Why did she interrupt his thoughts with that statement? Who would betray Saburo? He's the only friend the poor have these days. Remember, that's this bandit guy that keeps being talked about. That shows how far you have removed yourself from the poor. She was mending the sleeve of her torn kimono. There is no honor among the hungry. If I knew his name, I would turn him in a minute. 10 Saburos are not worth 1 day of your father's life or my own, when I am hungry enough. The authorities know this. She bit the thread. They can wait a little longer until someone who knows is hungry enough or greedy enough to come forward. They'll come. She nodded her head knowingly. Don't worry, someone will claim that reward. Before this year's rice is harvested, I'd wager my clothes on it. It was getting dark. He could spend the night, of course. That had been his original idea, but Asako didn't speak of it, and he felt oddly unwelcome. It would be better anyhow, he reasoned, to go back tonight and leave the food with her. He would be fed at the Hanaza, and it would be a waste for him to eat from the little supply that he had brought. He made a pot of tea and served her a cup. You must forgive my rudeness, but I must be getting back." "Oh?" If she had asked him to stay, he would have, but "oh?" was all she said. Jiro's tunic was still damp, but he changed into it anyway. He did not want Asako to think that he would impose on her in any way, even to the extent of borrowing one of Hanji's worn-out shirts. He wrapped his sash around his clammy torso and then put on his padded vest. "Well," he smiled, "I guess I'm ready." He paused. The words were in his mouth, those words a person uses when he leaves home briefly. "I go only to return," he said softly. She jerked her head in a bow, but her mouth was set in a straight line, and her eyes revealed nothing. "Hurry back," she said at last. The cold attacked him like an angry dog, biting at his face, his hands, his toes, his ankles. He pulled his hands up into his sleeves of his tunic and lowered his head into the wind. It was not such a long way, a half hour, and he should be back at the Hanaza. He broke into a little trot, but when he did, a nose poked out of an alley, so he slowed his steps. He turned his head slightly and tried to look over his shoulder. No one seemed to be following him. Surely he had nothing on him anyone would want to steal, except his vest, perhaps. He hugged it to him with his upper arms. "Oh, forgive me." He had nearly tripped over someone lying right out in the narrow street. Jiro knelt over the form and distinguished the sparse beard and wrinkled features of an old man. His eyes were open. "Grandfather," and that's what they just say to older people, "you'll be hurt lying here. Let me help you to the doorway up ahead." He shook the old man gently. "Grandfather?" The frozen eyes stared up into his face. A tiny thrill of fear went into Jiro's body. The poor creature was dead, starved or frozen, perhaps both. At least he could drag him out of the way where the body would not be stepped on or rolled over by a cart. Jiro grasped the old man by the shoulders and began to pull him along backward down the street. He'd take the corpse to the next alleyway where, as he told himself, the old man's relatives could find it in the morning and give him a proper burial. Surely someone would come to look for him. He would have a son or a daughter who cared. Jiro saw his own father lying in a street, being kicked and stepped on, eaten by hungry dogs. He shuddered. No, he would take care of his father and his mother. Nothing would happen to them. "Stop, you little thief." The voice beside him was low. Jiro turned to see a large man with a samurai hairstyle and a long sword raised, one of the ronin that plagued the city like rats. "This street is my territory." I'm not a thief," Jiro protested. "The old man is dead. I was just—" He let go of the body and tried to back away, but the ronin grabbed his vest. "Just taking him to the alley so you could strip him of anything worth having." "No, really." "This is my territory, you dirty little vulture." He raised the sword higher. The scene was played out like a puppet show. If anything, it seemed less real than that to Jiro. How could he be killed by an outlaw samurai on the first night of the New Year? His tunic still smelled faintly of lucky soup, and his ears burned with frostbite. An old man might die, but not he. His life had hardly begun. If only he had had the money, then he could have bribed the ronin. But now, unless he could wrench away from this iron fist, then suddenly a crack, and the ronin fell at his feet. "What are you doing out here?" It was the fierce, well-known voice of Yoshida. You nearly got yourself killed." "Yes." The boy began to shake. The fright had caught up with him. "Thank you, sir." His teeth were chattering. "Don't thank me. You never saw me tonight. Don't forget." "No, sir. Now get back as fast as you can." Jiro bolted like a rabbit from the mouth of a wolf who races to his hole without once looking back. And that's the end of chapter 6 from the Master Puppeteer.